Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should.
Our guest today is producer-engineer Wes Maebe, and it's evening where he is.
It is.
He's in the UK. We're here on the West Coast, or at least kind of close to it.
In the sandbox.
Yes, in California's sandbox adjacent.
Exactly.
So, first, a little bit of background on yourself. I know you came up as more of an engineer, and you started to get into production because of that blurred line between. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But you started out actually. Did you start out in Belgium or in the UK?
I kind of started out here and went back to Belgium, and then came back here. So, yeah, the actual engineering started here in London. But
you started as a musician, no doubt.
Kind of. I mean, I played guitar. One day I was bored. I must have been, I don't know, 12 or something. And I was being a brat, and I was bugging my dad that I was bored. And he just dragged me into the shop and said, "Give me the cheapest guitar you've got." And got me this really cheap nylon strung guitar and shoved it in my hands and said, "You'll never be bored again." He was right.
Was he a musician as well?
No, not at all. He's or he was. He gave up that part of the industry, but he was a technical engineer for Studer and EMT, and worked for the Belgian radio and television. So I guess that's where the technical thing comes from.
I was going to say, I think that answers my next question. Because, it's always fascinating to me how some musicians get into the technical end of things as well and merge those as instruments. As
yeah, sure.
And you
it definitely wasn't a musical career path. I mean, like everybody, I just strummed along and picked along and learned to play Smoke on the Water and Tom Dooley and all that stuff.
That's an interesting mix there, but okay.
Yeah, but that was the only song my dad can play on a guitar, so he showed me that.
Of course.
But I was studying classics in school, so it's all Latin and Greek, and that path in Belgium. If you do classics, they want you to go on to university, and I wanted to be a psychologist of some sort. I was always intrigued in serial killer profiling.
Well, that goes well with the music industry.
It does, yeah. I could profile myself, the amount of people we want to kill. But yeah, so and then things went a bit funny in at university, and my dad just said, "How about sound engineering?" I went, "What the hell is that? I have no idea." So he sent me to an old friend of his, head of AES Europe at the time, called Herman Willems, who you might have come across.
I recognize the name. I think he was one of the old white-haired dudes, right?
He was, and he was absolutely lunatic. I mean, he used to walk around the trade show floor draped in a white sheet like Caesar, that kind of stuff. And he just told me, he said, "If you want to learn this, you have to go to London." So I went, okay. And off we went.
Interesting. So I mean, was this a formal education in audio engineering at that point?
Yes. So he gave us a list of colleges to check out, and me and my parents came over here, checked all of them out, and it was sort of, because I didn't know anything. It was mainly my dad walking around sort of sniffing the air and going, "No, this isn't right." And then we walked into this room full of quarter-inch tape machines, half of which he'd built for Revox, because he remembered the serial numbers, and he went, "Yeah, this is the place."
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, so it was a degree in audio engineering and music technology. And yeah, I got the bug. I mean, within week one, I was like, yeah, this is it.
But it's interesting that, you know, in a sense, you understood pretty intrinsically that your path was in the studio side as opposed to, you know, I want to be a rock star. Because a lot of people come into it as wanting to be a rock star and then getting distracted by the technology, you know?
No, I always preferred the you know, the back room side of it, you know, helping to make those rock stars be the rock stars.
Yeah, the creative process behind that is really what I think draws you in, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And the technical side. I mean, I'm not overly technical, but you know, I can open a mixing desk and fix it. But that's not really, you know, where I was at. But before going to college, my dad gave me an entrance exam. He gave me a Revox G36, which is a valve one, which had been in a basement in the water. And he said, take it apart, clean it, put it back together, and if it works, you can go. Well, we're here now.
Did you have parts left over?
No. And I still have it. I still have the machine.
Nice.
It still works.
But I think, you know, the other thing that's interesting about that to me is that maybe that explains, well, it explains a lot about the way you mix old school and new school. Because, you know, I mean, to a certain extent, as we all know, the digital wars are long over and digital won, you know, and there are certain aspects to being able to recall stuff that the convenience factor has outweighed anything old school in that sense.
Definitely.
But, you know, you have an interesting way of balancing a lot of the old school technology with the new and using them in your work. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I think it was always going to be a combination of both, because, you know, like you said, the recall ability, the editing capability of digital is just, no way analog is going to win over that. But sonically, there is something in that analog world that we need, and digital without analog can simply not exist, because all the noises we make, they're all analog, and all the noise that needs to get into there is analog. So in a way, they were always supposed to, until somebody invents an XLR implant or an SPDIF implant straight into your brain, the analog side is going to stay there. But I think in my training, I was taught by old school guys, so I was always faced with, you know, analog tape and valves and all that stuff, and it stuck, you know. And there is something to be said for something hitting electronics, and then the electronics do something with it, which, you know, digital isn't there yet. I'm sure it'll get there, but it's not quite there yet.
Well, it's just something different.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same thing. It doesn't have to be an equivalent.
No, absolutely.
You know, and I think it's nice to mix them.
Absolutely.
What I wanted to ask you about was conversations we've had in the past regarding the environment in the studio. You know, how you plant yourself in within the creative environment of the studio, because that to me is, I think, where your psychology stuff really comes into play. You know, the creative process being the fragile child that it is. You know, I think to me, when I started working in the studio, that is the thing that really struck me. And I think that is the thing that I noticed with great producers, especially, is the ability to figure out where in the creative process you fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's kind of different project by project. You know, certain artists have a very clear understanding and a clear framework of what they want, and all we need to do is just facilitate that and make sure
Right.
that happens.
Right.
But then there are people who, to say it bluntly, have no idea. You know, they've got some chords, they've got some vocal lines, and they have no idea where to go with it. Good example was last week. I was at RAK in the studio with an artist I'd spoken with a lot, but I hadn't worked with yet. And she was ready to go into the studio. I said, have you done all your pre-production? Have you got your tempos right? Have you got your keys right? Have you got, you know, instrumentation right? All of that. Yeah, absolutely. And it was just her and keyboard player. It was supposed to be drums as well, but his wife gave birth, so he couldn't be there. And when they got started, she had no idea about any of those parts, and it became quite quickly. It became clear that she wanted that input. You know, it sort of started with, where do you want to go? What tempo do you feel? But I think within half an hour, it was clear that she wanted that input coming from me. Almost every time she did something, it was like, what do you think? What do you think? I was like, oh, okay. Because I wasn't really put down as a producer. I was just put down as an engineer. I just had to record her music.
Mm-hmm.
But it became quite clear that she wanted that help, and also the keyboard player, who's amazing piano player. I mean, when he was warming up, it was like Brahms, Bach, Mozart at lightning speed. It was like, this is going to be good. And then she shows up with like a Prophet and a Nord, and she wants him to create synthesized noises because she's a little bit avant-garde. And he was like, I don't know what. This isn't a piano.
Yeah, it sounds to me like a real case of lack of pre-production.
Yeah, absolutely. This is weird. This is alien to me. So, you know, Then it was down to me to go and make him feel comfortable in that environment, because we had a piano set up, we had a Rhodes and a Wurlitzer. That's all fine. But then all the synthy bits, he was like, preset. And I just gave him a quick tutorial on you know, envelopes and filters and stuff, and suddenly this new world opened up for him, and he was super happy, and we got going.
Mm-hmm.
And we got 5 songs done in 3 days.
Well, that's good. At least it was a productive thing. But
it was productive.
I do think it's, you know, I think it's interesting. You talk about the difference between that kind of situation and working with an artist who's almost, you know, sort of self-contained, as a lot of them are. And
yeah, I mean, it's a fine line. You kind of have to start gauging where and when you can say something. You know, it's like, are they going to feel like I'm intruding on their territory, or, you know? So it's sort of very easily and gently put yourself into the mix and go, hey, how about this, or how about that? And sometimes you have to work hard to make it appear that it was their idea, not yours.
That's what I'm talking about, is the whole idea of, you know, there's a lot of ego involved. But there's a lot of emotional stuff that has to be worked out with talking about, you know, about basically messing with their babies, you know. And I think that's something that is not necessarily taught in schools.
It isn't. It definitely isn't. Yeah, because I remember when I graduated. You know, you come out of these places, you think, yeah, I know everything, and yes, on paper you do. And in theory you do. You know how a compressor works, you know how a microphone works, but you don't know how human beings work. That's a completely different story.
Right.
And yeah, that is not really taught. I tried to teach it.
How did you learn it yourself? Did you have the opportunity to look over the shoulder of
No, I didn't really. I didn't really do the sort of T-boy K-pop,
Mhm.
and I really wish I had that opportunity
I
to
don't think those
come.
opportunities, I mean, obviously those opportunities don't exist like they used to. And I think it's kind of a
They
shame.
well, I think they do. I think it depends on the studio. Like at RAK, it does exist. You know, we still go through runners and assistants, and I love having new assistants because I like to teach them shit,
Yeah. And yeah, and it's
which is
great to
fun.
really, yeah, it's great to really be able to convey that to them. And I think uh, to me, that's the real value of that is not the technical stuff. You've already learned the technical stuff, but
Yeah,
the
yeah, exactly.
psychological stuff, the human to human interaction, the creative process and where you fit in, that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
innate
yeah. No,
communication.
definitely, and I think even now in the current situation with the whole COVID thing, because you know studios are trying to keep everything a little bit more separated, so
Mhm.
you might find yourself in a control room with just your assistant for a lot longer than usual, where you know there'd be a drummer behind you, there'd be a manager, there'd be an A&R person behind you. Now you're in the room with just your assistant, so you can sort of you could spend a bit more time explaining things and you know going into situations where you're like, oh my god, this is fucking terrible, but watch this, and you go on the talk back and you stroke the ego and you get a better performance out of the person, which otherwise the assistant might not notice that balance, because they might just go, oh god, he's just kissing butt. As where now they know that what's going down is terrible and you think it's terrible, and they see you then do the thing to get the ball
Right.
rolling.
Work with the
So
artist.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know, and it's not like you're bullshitting, it's just you want the best to come out of these people. um
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and it shows assistants and runners that you know what you're thinking is, dude, that absolutely sucked. Now grow a pair and do it properly, which translates into, this was quite good, but you know, I think you can do better.
Well, it's true.
It's people management.
It is. It is. It's people, man. It's expectations, and it's
As well.
you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's all a creative process, and that I think is, of course, in the situations that you find yourself in, and like the one you're talking about with this artist,
Mm,
you know, you have to immediately determine where in that gray zone between engineer and producer am I this time.
yeah. Oh no, no, absolutely, absolutely. But it kind of, I don't know. I maybe it's just second nature, but I think it points itself out quite quickly.
Oh, sure,
You
sure.
know, you immediately get a feel, and you know, it might even take 5 minutes. I mean, in this case, she was doing some vocal takes, and initially it was sort of vocal take all the way through, vocal take all the way through, vocal take all the way through, and she'd say, "Yeah, I think we've got enough to do something." And then the next song, I kind of felt it's not there, and I just thought, I'm just gonna try it. You know, it's like get onto the talk back, and you know what, that was really great, but it would be lovely that you could open up a bit more. And there was a little bit of vocal coaching involved suddenly, which I think made her feel safe,
Hmm.
because I knew what was going on. I was like, and I was explaining, you know, it sounds a little bit tight like that. So if you just open up, it's starting to sound sexy. It's sounding to start cool. And from that moment on, it was like, that was it. That had to be my job. I had to take her through all those songs.
Hmm.
So you know, what once you take that little jump, you feel it whether you're in the right place, or you'll very soon know, like, shut up, this is not your place.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. But I don't think there are that many artists that are of that attitude. There are certainly artists that are much more headstrong, but I think,
Mm.
it's not a binary choice there. There's this
No, 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 no,
whole
no.
gray zone of how much input do I put in and where does it go? You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit trial and error.
isn't
If
it?
you come up with a good idea, you have to find a way to voice it.
Right, right.
You know,
And
and
you're determining like how much of an arranger am I in terms of contributing, or how much
mm,
of a psychologist am I? Are we all of a sudden bringing out your suppressed things from when you were 14? Who knows? There's so much.
I've
There's
done
so much.
that.
Yeah, well, oh,
I've
you
ma-
work with them too, huh?
I've made people cry.
Well, it is sort of therapeutic.
Well, it is, and they don't always know where to get this stuff from.
It's true.
And we are a new set of ears, and we are the outsiders who are looking in, rather than the artist who's been living with this shit for like 30-40 years.
Yeah, yeah. It's a risk. They're taking a risk. It's a
They are.
relationship, and that's just it. I think any artist that you work with in any
Yeah.
kind of a deep level like that, I mean, a relationship does form.
Yeah, I
Good or
mean,
bad.
they are bearing their soul.
Hmm. Yeah,
And you're taking it in your hands, and like you said, you're sort of messing with their kids, but at the same time, those kids are becoming your kids too.
yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of codependency there.
Mm, yeah,
You
I
know,
know, absolutely.
that's I
Absolutely.
mean, it's way more than just engineering a record, man. And I think that's the stuff that you don't necessarily learn until you find yourself thrust into the process.
No, you don't learn that until you're there, and I think that also uh, picks the real engineers and producers from the the not so real ones.
Yeah, or
Um,
the ones who are just learning.
yeah, but it's a passionate job. It's not a 9 to 5 thing. It's not just a job. It's a passion. It's a hobby. It is a job, but I always look at it the other way. It is my passion, and then it's my job. And isn't it fucking amazing that my passion is my job?
Well, and that's I've often observed that most of the stuff that I've tried to do to make money
Mm,
doesn't really work out, and I'm not very happy with it. But something that I do that I just love, you
yeah,
know, if you can figure out how to make it your livelihood,
yeah.
then life is good.
I think the flip side of that coin is that a lot of us and a lot of artists are so vulnerable to being taken advantage of, because we do what we do because we love it,
Yeah, yeah.
and that puts us in quite a fragile position.
Well, it's true, and especially I mean, it's also to a certain extent, it's how you define your success.
Mm,
There are
yeah.
artists who there are some artists who are really attached to the idea of commercial success,
Mm,
you know, and there are others who are fine with the idea of, I don't care if only one person in 200 has heard of me. If I'm pulling in bank and I'm doing what I want to do, I'm happy, you know?
yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are plenty of people who are more or less behind the scenes and, dare I say it, living normal lives where they can go to the market, and,
It's true.
and doing just fine, and I think that's a lot of people have sort of a fallacy of, you know, I have to be rich and successful and everybody has to know my name. And I think if you're doing what you love and you're,
Then it doesn't matter.
yeah, exactly.
Mm, yeah.
You know,
No, absolutely. Yeah.
sounds like you're doing what you love.
I do. Of course I do. Hey man, I got to mix a record with you playing bass on it. Of course I love what I'm doing.
Oh man, that doesn't happen very often these days, But I do love the idea of being able to phone in your part anywhere at all,
Oh man, I wish I was there.
Well, the weather's better, I'm sure.
To hit record, yeah, it's fucking freezing out here.
Tell me about what you've been doing since COVID.
Well, as you know, we've been doing these isolation things,
Mm-hmm.
And our track that we worked on together is, I think the video is in progress. So
I love it. So this is Lasso the Moon.
Lasso the
For
Moon,
those not
yes.
initiated.
Was basically just, a bunch of open mic guys who suddenly couldn't do an open mic because the lockdown, and we just decided to do these little isolation videos and hopefully bring some joy into this fucked up world.
It's a pretty cool concept. Yeah, I love that.
It is. I mean, it's hard work, but it brings back we love what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making any money out of it. None of the guys are making any money out of it. It's just a bunch of guys and girls who love playing and want to share that with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing that. What else?
Obviously you're able to work on some projects, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, studios are open here, and RAK has got quite a stringent, sort of COVID policy in place, which allows us to do sessions. So I've been doing a couple of sessions there. And I just started mixing a record for the owner of Roto Sound, the guitar strings.
Ooh.
Yeah, Jason's a bit of a musician.
What a shock.
Yeah, no, it's really, really cool stuff. Sort of old school rock and roll mixed with a bit of punk in there and a bit of psychedelica. So yeah,
nice.
It's good stuff. So
good you're able to stay busy.
Trying to. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Well, Wes, Maebe, thank you for being my guest.
My pleasure, as always. And hopefully we can meet properly soon.
I miss those days.
I know. Me too. And I've never been to Vegas.
Well, right now it's not worth coming to.
Well, it's a little bit better.
It's a little bit better. It's kind of sad, actually. The hotels here are not really up to capacity. A lot of things are closing.
Right.
Tourism is just dead.
Yeah, I mean, the traveling thing is insane. Yeah, because I had to pop back to Belgium to go and see my parents and deal with some stuff, and you come back and you're stuck for 14 days.
It's insane. Well, I mean, there at least they're doing that, and I mean, it's I don't know how effective any of it is, but here it depends where you go and what the local outlook is, which is kind of
true. That's true. But it I don't know. Even though I mean, yeah, Belgium got quite bad at some point, but it's definitely been doing better than here. But it's still not on the safety corridor. So
right. But the UK's having another spike now too, right?
Yeah, they're having another spike, and they're definitely having another spike in absolute fucking stupidity.
Of course. It always makes me feel at least a little bit heartened that it's not exclusive to my country,
Yeah, you were doing good on that front.
We're waving the stupid flag big time for the last 4 years, so.
Hey, come on, man. I'm looking at this every day. I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Last NAMM show, obviously, right?
It was. It was.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's the
yeah.
one thing I like about Vegas is that I'm a 4-hour drive from LA.
Yep.
And I think since last year, I have not been on a plane.
Wow.
I mean, there's, you know, flying here has just become an even more tremendous hassle.
Right.
There is a nice little charter thing that goes from here to LA and also up to the Bay Area. It flies these little, you know, those little 30-seaters. And, you know, you're not sitting next to anyone, right?
Excellent.
And, you know, it's a 45-minute flight. It's like London to Belgium or something, you know. It's a quick flight, but
Brilliant.
you don't have to go through a regular terminal. They have their own private terminal.
Oh,
you get there 20 minutes before the flight and you're still good. You know, so that makes all the difference in the world. You know,
delight.
The whole idea of, you know, ever in the last few years, the whole idea of flying, taking, you know, an additional 2 hours out of my day, you know, that I have to be there early. Why?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, because the lines are so bloody long.
Right, exactly. So everything has just, you know, travel has become so inconvenient anyway.
That's true. That's true.
I'm just happy to get in my car, drive out to LA, do whatever the hell I have to do, you know.
Come back.
So, I don't know, right now, I'd rather not fly anywhere. And it's just such a fucking hassle.
It is a hassle. But yeah, once all this crap is over, you'll have to fly over here and...
Oh, I miss it terribly. I really do.
We'll do a proper hang and go and look at places.
Yes, thank you. I haven't... God, I haven't been in the studios in London in about 20 years now. When I lived over there, of course, I would, you know, I hung at Metropolis. I got the Abbey Road tour.
Yeah.
You remember Barber? She used to be the studio manager at Abbey
Yes.
Road.
Yeah. Absolutely.
She gave me we had a lovely day hanging out there. You know, I got to fulfill, you know, my childhood dreams of, you know, walking down the stairs of Studio 2, you know, and
along the vanity rail.
Oh God, man, you got to know what that's like. You know, it's just those are things you just can't get past, you know. And
that's true. That's true.
I even got a smile from George Martin walking through Air Studios. He was on the phone, but, you know, fuck it. I'll take it.
Such a lovely man he was.
Yeah.
And,
you know, I think you have there's so much history in that town, man, you know.
There is.
There are a few cities that just have amazing music scenes, you know. I've always I've had a running joke with people that, you know, most of them also have shitty weather. Rock and roll loves rain.
LA doesn't have shitty weather.
Oh, that's true. No, LA
has no weather.
LA is the exception that proves the rule, okay? Because LA has no weather at all.
Exactly.
It's
New York is shit weather, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, most of the organic music scenes.
Yeah.
You know, it's New York, it's London, you know, Seattle has a music scene like that, you know, because
they've got
sucks.
Terrible weather.
Exactly.
Terrible weather. It's no surprise grunge came out of that.
It's true. Hamburg has a great music scene.
Yeah, that could be pretty grim.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then of course everyone in Hamburg rehearses in those bunkers too.
There is that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, my friend, it's been good to chat with you.
Absolutely, yeah. And if there's anything else, another specific topic you want to cover, let me know.
All right, man. Take care of yourself.
Good to see you. See you soon.
Bye.
All right. No, I just don't trust this technological shit over the Atlantic, you know.